2, 1. Hi, Kellane. How you doing?
Hey Ben, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, very well. Kellane, thank you very much for getting up so early to have this interview with us. It's like just gone 7 a.m. with you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's early for me. Some people like it this early, but no, I'm happy to be here.
That's great. Well, we do appreciate your time, so thank you very much. Guys, this is Kellane Conge. She was with us in our Argentina program in August of 2016. And for anyone that doesn't know me, I've been on a few of these interviews so far. I'm Ben Hesketh, and I'm one of the TEFL Heaven team. So, Kellane, we are so grateful to have you interview this morning and to give us your insights from your experience of teaching and spending time in Argentina. Is it true they call Argentina the Paris of South America? Can you make any kind of comparison there?
Yeah, everyone was saying that before I went, and I can't really say because I've never been to Paris. I actually, yeah, but I actually wrote a blog, while I was over there, and in one of my articles I said I didn't like that people said that because I think Buenos Aires serves its own definition, its own way of being described. So, but again, I haven't been to Paris, so maybe they're exactly the same, but I doubt it.
I've never seen an Eiffel Tower in Buenos Aires, so.
That's true.
So tell us about, we want to obviously know about your experience, and kind of, we've got a list of questions and things to cover during this interview. But the first thing I always really like to ask at the beginning is kind of, what got you into this? What did you set out to achieve personally, and kind of did you achieve that, and how that all worked out for you?
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of people my age and, coming out of college or high school, or, well, I guess you have to be out of college, but kind of finding our purpose in the world, or our path, or what we want to do with ourselves is always sort of a question. And I sort of, before I went to Argentina, before I got involved with TEFL Heaven, I did a volunteer program in Mexico where I was teaching, and just fell in love with it. And I knew that I loved to travel. I'd studied abroad in college, and, I'd been a couple of different places. So to me, it made sense that, teaching English in another country would be a good fit for me. So that was sort of the easy part, was deciding that I wanted to teach abroad. The more difficult part was figuring out where I wanted to go. So, just kind of, searching on the internet, like, what do I do with myself? I, came across this TEFL certificate, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. So.
That's great. So what were your what did you want to actually achieve from this experience? Like, did you have some personal goals? A lot of people, like, they want to make a difference, or they want to do this or that. So.
Yeah, definitely. One of my big goals was to work on my Spanish. So I studied Spanish in college as well. And I think the best way to improve your language skills is to go to a country that speaks it and sort of be immersed in it. So that was a big part of it as well. And then I had, that sort of volunteer teaching experience. It was very, very different from, being certified to teach and going and teaching. But now that I have that under my belt, I feel a lot more confident with just doing things in everyday life. So that was another goal, was to, prove to myself that I could go to another country and teach other people a different language and, improve my self-esteem and my confidence. And it definitely helped me do that for sure.
No, that's great. And that's great to hear. And you know what, I mean, I'm always telling people that, I think the combination of traveling and teaching always builds your confidence. And confidence is, usually a catalyst for opportunity, and it spurs you on. Like, you believe you can do stuff, and it's such a wonderful, empowering feeling. So
Definitely.
That's fantastic. So, so going to the training for a moment. So a lot of people kind of say, how difficult is the training, or what's the training like? How would you describe your experience of the 4 weeks TEFL training?
Yeah, I absolutely loved the training. It was hard. It wasn't easy, but it was fun. So we were in class for, I think, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day to start. And I've been out of college for like 2 years. So for me, I was really excited to be in a classroom again and learn again. Since I've graduated, I feel like I'm just getting more dumb. So good and learning and, had homework. I was like, oh, homework, like, this is exciting. So maybe for those of you that are tired of homework, you'll have to keep going with that. But so I really enjoyed it. And then we did our observations where we actually went into a school and we watched an English class. And then we had practices where we did practice lessons at a real institute, at a real school with real people, which was terrifying, but came out of it. It was awesome. It was really helped us feel like we could do it, because it's a scary thing. So I loved it.
Yeah. What would you say? It's interesting because I used to be on the courses in Thailand, and there was always I used to really enjoy watching people doing their first teaching of real students, because I always think that there's a few things that they discover that they didn't realize before when they were teaching in front of their peers. Were there any moments kind of that you had when you were teaching the real students for the first time that you thought, okay, like any real revelatory moments where you thought that doesn't work, or I need to really do this? Was there anything like that?
Not really. It was kind of less. So yeah, we did do where we would teach like sort of mock lessons and with the peers that were in the course. So, and that was a little awkward just because the people and that they speak English already. Yeah. So then actually going into the class, and my first class that I taught was with middle schoolers, I think, or maybe high schoolers. And I was so nervous. And then as soon as I got up there, I was like, oh wait, this is fine. Like, I can do this. And
that's great.
I went through my lesson, and the kids were actually like excited to have me there because they were like, oh, this new girl. So really it really helped me kind of snap into like the teacher role, being in front of them and still having their normal teacher was there, in the back, and I could look at them for any help or, sort of guidance in any moment. So it was very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think for some people, they just, like you say, they just kind of snap into it and they go into that teacher mode, and they navigate their way through it. I think a lot of the time, some things that I've seen people do is use too much vocabulary at first, and then they're sort of trying to explain the structure of the lesson or of an activity, and often the students are like looking at them all blank faced because they're like using so many words. So I guess one of the things that always struck me was like this real need for simplification and just trying to make things as simple as possible. But some people just seem to have a knack for it. They just seem to really understand that other people kind of have to have that experience to learn it. So it's just the way it is for some people. But glad to hear you had a really good time and you enjoyed it and you got a lot from the experience. So did you make some friends along the way on the course?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely some lifelong friends. Still in contact. So I'm not in Argentina anymore, but still in contact with some of the people that there was only 4 of us. So we became pretty close, and still in contact with them.
Yeah, that's great. It's always nice. Yeah, I always say to people that you'll meet like-minded people when you go and do these sort of courses. For sure. Yeah, it's a great thing. Okay, so how do you feel that Argentina compared, your kind of experience of when you were there compared to what you thought it was probably going to be or might be? A lot of the time we pick up little bits and pieces in our lives from newspapers, media, and we kind of build up this perception of what a place might be like. How was the sort of reality compared to maybe the sort of stereotypes and what you thought it was going to be like before? Yeah,
I think that's a good question too, because I've sort of learned through various travels or various experiences, and I try to tell myself not to have too many expectations. So I really went into the experience trying to do that. So I obviously had read about Argentina and had been researching and doing this and that before I went, but I didn't really know what to expect. It was definitely a lot bigger than I was expecting. I had looked at how many people live there. I think there's like 3 million people that live in Buenos Aires, but that was a big sort of adjustment for me because where I live there's about 150,000. So that was an interesting adjustment that I wasn't maybe prepared for. But then, honestly, one of the best things that I didn't expect was everyone was so nice. So I guess when you're in big cities, like in the United States, like New York, for example, not everyone is really nice. Everyone's kind of like doing their own thing on their own way, got their headphones in, not paying attention to anyone around them. But in Buenos Aires, everyone was so friendly, and you ask someone for directions on the street, they're happy to give you directions, even if it's the wrong directions, which it probably is. Or like people even ask me like, how do I get to this place? I'm like, what do I look like I know where I'm going? Because I don't know. But so I like fit in pretty well there, which was nice. And I wasn't really expecting that, being a white little blonde girl from the States. Some people didn't even know I wasn't from there until they started talking to me. But yeah, so that was a delightful surprise.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's interesting. I always like to find out people's perception and kind of like what it was like compared to what they thought, because yeah, it's easy sometimes to see some things, isn't it, and create this idea of what you think it's going to be like, but the reality is very different. And like you say, I think it is a rare situation that when you're in a big sort of metropolitan place, that you have very friendly attitudes from people, because I know it's the same in the UK. You go into the city and you're in the rat race, and it's just crowded, and people generally haven't got the time. So it's really nice to hear that. It's refreshing to hear that you had that kind of experience with people.
Yeah, it was refreshing at the time too. I was like, oh, thank goodness, like some nice people over here.
Yeah, that is nice. And it makes you feel more welcome. It makes you feel like you have a greater sense of community as well. Even when you don't know people around you, if you feel like you can communicate with them and it's on a friendly basis, then it's always more nice and comforting, which is good. So Argentina has a reputation for having fantastic wine and wonderful steaks.
Yes.
Are either of those things true?
Both of those things are true. I was a vegetarian before, well, sort of. I was loosely a vegetarian before I went over there, and everyone warned me like, oh, you're not going to be a vegetarian when you go to Argentina, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you are right. I'm going to eat meat when I'm in Argentina. And I did, and it was wonderful. Yeah, wine and meat, definitely a big thing. Asados are like the big culture. I mean, I don't know how to really describe it, but it's basically a cookout or a barbecue, and everyone gets together, Saturdays or really any day of the week, and they cook out and eat and drink all day, and it's the most fun that you'll ever have.
Yeah, that's great. I understand that, because I haven't actually spent any time in Argentina, but I understand that they have quite a sort of outdoor culture, that they do like to get out a lot. Is that right?
Yeah. There's in the city, it's a little, it depends on the season. When I was there during the summer, it was really, really hot. So it was like, where can we go that there is air conditioning?
Right, yeah.
But during the, months where the weather's a little bit nicer, there's there's a lot of parks and a lot of activities to do outside. So you'll find, the parks are packed when the weather's nice. Like everyone's just out having a picnic, and I really like that. There's also a lot of opportunities for things outside of the city to do. Like for one afternoon, me and my friends went to an estancia, like a field or a farm outside of the city, and went horseback riding, which was amazing. So there's a lot of opportunities for things like that as well.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, perfect. Okay, so there's three kind of big questions that people always want to know, the three big concerns that people often have. The first is kind of like, is it possible to live on the salary out there? How comfortable am I going to be? Am I going to live comfortably, safe, et cetera, et cetera? What was your experience? Obviously we don't want to go into any personal financial details, but what was your experience of being able to live on the salary, and kind of how that worked out for you?
Yeah, when I was there, I was living pretty comfortably. It all kind of depends on your own situation, obviously. I was there in a weird time, so I didn't really have as many hours that I needed to live as comfortably as I wanted. But I was able to afford my rent and, food, obviously. So I was feeding myself and I was living, and I was still able to, go and have fun with my friends, or there are a lot of opportunities for there's a lot of free activities in Buenos Aires as well. So, I mean, I think it's definitely possible to live comfortably there, but you will have to work a lot. And you'll have to do a lot of like traveling around the city, which takes a lot of time. So the majority of your week is going to be on the subway and in classes and lesson planning. So, really, if you're frugal enough during the week, then, during the weekend you can go out to dinner and, do more fun stuff, or maybe, do a day trip somewhere. But I think you definitely have to plan and budget yourself. That was definitely the biggest struggle for me when I was there, was my finances.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good. I mean, I think financial planning is good everywhere you go, but sometimes when things are a little bit tighter, and generally in Latin America, we always say that it's pretty much kind of like mostly break even. So it's not the sort of place where you're going to go and save money.
Right. You're not going to probably save any money there, but I don't think it's a reason to keep you from going if you really are set on Argentina.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how did you find the public transport then around Buenos Aires? Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good. I never really had issues with it, and besides the normal issues that you have with public transportation. Sometimes the buses or the subte, which is the metro system, sometimes they do like, what is it called? Not riots, but
protests.
Like protests where they just won't work for a day, which is annoying.
Go on strike.
Yeah, they go on strike. Yeah. So there'll be like random days where you go down to like take the metro and like it's not working, and then you take the bus, or then you just take an Uber. You figure it out. But that happened like maybe 3 times when I was there. It's not really a big deal. Traffic is just you'll get to work really late, but so will everyone else, so it's fine. But other than that, I mean, it was really easy to use. You have just like a card, and you can use it on the bus and on the subway, and you just like fill it up with cash and use it or don't use it as much as you want. So it's really easy.
Yeah, that's good. That's like a lot of metropolitan cities, like in London, you have like the Oyster card and things like that. What's interesting to hear they like to go on strike a bit, because that's probably another connection with Paris then, because the French always like to go on strike. Anything's wrong, then they like to go on strike. So yeah, there's a connection there. So another big thing that people always want to know about is about the visa situation. So we always tell people that in Latin America, exception of probably Mexico, the majority of the time you'll be working on a tourist visa. So what was your experience with that?
Yeah, I didn't have to buy or purchase any additional visas, but I mean, I just, got my stamp in my passport and that was it, I think. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So that was easy and fine. It wasn't until, I think, March of 2015, maybe it was 14, that changed. So for Americans. So if you were in the United States, you used to have to pay like $50 to go to even just go to Argentina. But that's changed now. You don't have to do that. And then working, I didn't have to do anything to be hired on. So yeah. Easy peasy.
So it was all nice and simple. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Because I think that's definitely one thing that people always worry about, or they think they're going to have to go through some long-winded bureaucratic process to get a visa. So it's nice that it's all nice and simple. Visa on arrival. There you go. So that's great. Yeah. So the last big thing that people always want to know about is accommodation. Everyone wants to know that they've got enough money, they can stay in the country, and that they've got a roof over their head. So what was it like for you trying to secure your long-term accommodation after the training?
Yeah, that was another sort of stressful thing in my experience. Ended up working out wonderfully, but I would suggest, there's a lot of Airbnbs in the area, and they're really easy to get in contact with. So I would sort of start there. That's how I secured my place during the training. and ended up living in this really cool place, or really cool house. But it was a little bit out of my price range after I started working.
Yeah.
And I ended up you need to make friends, tell everyone that you're looking for a place to live. That's how I ended up. I had a friend, and she knew someone that was looking for a roommate. So it was a lot of word of mouth. Honestly, that's going to be the best way to find a cheap option to live. Because they definitely hike the prices up for tourists or
foreigners.
People that aren't from there. They definitely charge you more for rent. But there's a lot of like student housing options. There's a lot of apartments there. So it's definitely possible to find something. But I think your best bet would be to just keep telling everyone that you meet that you're looking for a place to live, and hopefully someone will be looking for a roommate. But I ended up finding a place right on a main avenue, living with two girls from Ecuador who, I became really close with and really good friends with, and I'm still talking to them today too. So, I think, and most of my friends that I was that I was working with that were in the course, they had apartments, or they were living with friends, or they were living alone, and it all worked out fine. Try not to get too stressed about it. That would be my advice, because it definitely stressed me out for a while, and that on top of teaching. But yeah,
I think the whole thing is a bit of a roller coaster ride. I always say to people that the whole process, kind of from before you start the training to sort of a couple of months into the teaching, is a roller coaster, because you get to the course, you've normally got your accommodation sorted, you become settled, you become comfortable, and then all of a sudden, you've got to go change your accommodation to sort of long-term accommodation. You're in a job, and there's just so much going on. There's so much adjustment. There's so much change. I think it can be very stressful. So I think your advice is, good. And it seems to me from what you were saying that it's really a case of being proactive, being on the ball, being proactive, and you'll get something sorted.
Yeah. I would maybe start from the beginning, like when you get there, start looking for a place. Because I kind of waited till my third week in the course, and I ended up getting like really sick because I was like teaching, but also trying to find an apartment, and it was all stressing me out. So my body just like shut down. I got really, really sick for like a week. But the Airbnb where I was staying, they let me stay for an additional week for free. It was so sweet. So
that's nice.
That really helped me. But if I had started from the beginning looking for a place, I might have done better.
Yeah. We always say to people that Airbnb is a really good option, because, like you said, you can normally get a price externally for what you're paying for. So it's not a case of when you rock up and they see you're a foreigner or or a tourist, and they think, okay, right, because it does happen. It happens all over the world. As soon as people see tourists, they think, well, they don't know the price. So that's the reality of it. But I'm sorry to hear that you had that sort of stressed out situation at the end of the course. But
it made me stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever doesn't break you makes you stronger. But it's nice to hear that there's people kind enough to let you stay for another week as well. So that's good. There really are some very nice, kind people in Argentina. Okay, so you mentioned about hanging out with your friends on a weekend. So I wanted to know, people always want to know, like, what does a TEFL teacher living in a foreign country get up to on the weekends? What sort of things do you do or did?
Yeah. A lot of sitting in parks, a lot of asados, a lot of eating meat. I became really close with the girls that I was living with. So we would, go out to dinner or, go grab a drink. There's so many things to do in Buenos Aires. It's one of those, like, this city never sleeps. It truly never sleeps. Like, there's people out and about at all hours of the day and night. So there's always something to do. One thing that I also wasn't really expecting that I liked a lot was they have this thing called Mundo Lingo. It's in other places too. I don't know if I don't know where else it is, but it's like a worldwide group. But they meet at a bar in the area, and basically any expats or any foreigners or TEFL teachers or whatever, you can go to the bar and they give you a little flag sticker, like I would have an American flag sticker on my shirt, and you go around, so you put like where you're from, and then you put a sticker for the language you want to learn. So like I would have the American flag, and then I'd have the Argentine flag, and you go around and you basically just meet other foreigners or other people that want, so like sometimes there's people there that want to learn English, sometimes there's people there that, you know, want to meet more people. So it was a great way to like meet other, it was like a young professional group of people who want to practice their language or want to practice a different language or just make friends. So that was really awesome because you got to go to different bars and different restaurants and things in the area and also meet people and make friends. So I made actually a couple of friends from that. And, you know, there was always like a Tuesday night or Thursday night. And then I think they have ones like on Saturdays too. So that was really fun and a way to see the city as well.
Yeah, that's a fantastic, I mean, when you're living in a foreign country, probably I think one of the most important things is just having like a network of friends and a community and to feel that you're part of away from home. So sounds like a great experience and useful as well if you wanted to learn your language. So you said at the beginning that one of the key things you wanted to do, one of the goals you had was to improve your Spanish. How did that work out for you?
That was a lot harder than I thought because the Spanish that is spoken in Argentina is very different from what I'm used to. And so it definitely helped. I definitely learned a lot. But when you're teaching English, you're speaking English all day. So that was sort of a challenge that, you know, I was speaking English all day to my students and also in my head. So it was kind of harder for me to transition into Spanish. And even at home, with my two roommates there from Ecuador, obviously they speak Spanish. So even at home, like they would speak to me in English and I'd be like, and I would respond in English and then I'd be like, wait, we need to speak Spanish. I need to practice. So it was kind of like, I had to go out of my way to speak Spanish sometimes, which made it a little bit more difficult. And had I been there longer, since I was only there for 4 months, that's not really enough time to get a firm grasp on the language. I mean, I have a pretty good background in it anyways, but yeah, it was more challenging than I thought. I definitely have to get used to the Spanish in Argentina. It's different.
Yeah, I hear that as well. You know, it's different to sort of, well, I think, you know, throughout a lot of Latin America, you know, the dialects can change a little bit and it can be a little bit different. So depending upon what sort of Spanish you've been schooled in, right, can be a little bit, you know, off-putting, I guess. But the other thing is, I mean, the problem you described there, you know, is a common one. Often when people are living in a foreign country as an expat and they want to use the language that they're trying to learn, but everyone wants to speak to them in English. And it's the problem. It's actually the excuse I used when I was living in Thailand was that my Thai was awful, but I was constantly surrounded by people who wanted to use English. And so, so that was my excuse really. But no, it doesn't help when you're trying to learn the language at all. Right. But yeah, that's just the reality of the situation. But I'm sure your Spanish ended up much better than it was at the beginning. But maybe not, you know, everyone has that idea of being fluent, don't they? You want to come away and be fluent. But
right.
That doesn't always happen. But cool. Okay. So how do you think that this experience has kind of impacted you and changed you as a person? I think nobody goes into this and comes out the other end the same. So what's been your experience of that?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, I mean, it definitely helped with my confidence and sort of gave me a little nudge or a little push to tell me or to show me that I can really do a lot more than I think I can. I mean, I was terrified before I went there, and then being back, I look back on the experience, I'm like, why was I scared? That was awesome, you know? So it kind of showed me that I can really do anything I put my mind to, which sounds cliche, but it's true.
It is true.
Yeah, and it also just encouraged me to keep on, you know, doing that, keep on getting scared and then doing things and coming out of it the other end a better person, which includes like traveling and teaching. I mean, I loved it. I loved teaching. I loved traveling, obviously, but I'm gonna do my best to keep doing those kinds of things, not just okay, I'm back, let me get back into the groove of things. So
yeah. So I think some people find it challenging when they get home, when they've been away for some time like that, because you do become acclimatized to the culture and every other aspect of the living, and then you can almost have like a way sickness, when you get back, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't know whether it's not quite an anticlimax, but it's like you've had this great rich experience, and then you get back and life almost feels a little bit dull because before it was so exciting, or you feel like you've taken a step backwards. But it's all about stepping stones, really. Sorry, no, go on.
No, I was just gonna. No, you're fine.
Well, I was just going to say, what is the next stepping stone for you, or do you have any thoughts about what you want to do in the future, whether you want to apply what you've learned, or what does the future hold for Kellane?
I mean, I definitely want to apply what I've learned to future experiences that I, at the moment, am not teaching, but I definitely look forward to opportunities in the future to do that. I'm actually considering Peace Corps, which is a big, program here in the United States. And maybe they do a lot of TEFL, but they also do different kind of teaching around the world. So I'm looking into that opportunity. Right now, just living and working in Charleston, South Carolina, where I'm from, but really enjoying that. It was, like you were saying, it is kind of like not necessarily a step back, but when you get back from, teaching abroad, it's weird, it's strange. I kind of got right back into, I was home right at Christmas, so I got to see all my family and all my friends, which was really, really fun, and I was really excited for that. But then the months following, I was kind of like, oh, wait, why am I not teaching in Argentina right now? So I forgot where I was going with that, but I look forward to applying those skills in the future.
No, that's great. That's great. And, I always think that this kind of experience always leads on. For a lot of people, I think a lot of people go into this kind of hoping that they're going to have this experience, and it's going to kind of tell them some of the things they want to do, or maybe they might decide, I've really had a brilliant experience, but teaching isn't the long-term career path I have, and other people kind of want to use it to solidify that it's definitely what they want to do in the future. So I think one way or another, it kind of helps you to learn about yourself and know how you can apply yourself and what you can do in the future, and realize that you have more opportunity than you thought you did before you started. That's what I think.
Definitely.
Happens a lot of the time. So I've got one last question for you. I always like to round up on this last question. So, if you were to give anyone any advice or sort of insight or thoughts on whether they're thinking about going to Argentina or any other country to teach English abroad, what sort of advice would you give them with your hindsight?
Well, the piece of advice that I always give, and I try to follow myself, as I sort of mentioned, is to not have too many expectations. So obviously, do your research, know where you're going, know the area that you're going to live in or work in, but try not to think too much about it. Be self-aware and do your financial planning. That also, financial planning is a big suggestion or a piece of advice. But honestly, I've never had an experience that turned out to be exactly the way I expected, and I feel like you're either going to be disappointed or you're going to be, delightfully surprised. But I think the best piece of advice I can give is just don't expect too many things. Yeah, I think that's good advice. Always manage your expectations, and I think when people come in with too high expectations, they can leave themselves open to being disappointed, and I think you just have to take it as it comes. I was interviewing somebody the other day, and they'd been part of some program previously in another country, and I think they said that the program had a slogan. It was like, when you're living abroad, it's not wrong, it's just different. And I thought that was really good, and it kind of reminded me what you were just saying then, is that you have to go in with that open-mindedness and just be prepared to go with whatever's presented, really. So perfect.
Well, Kellane, we are so grateful for the time that you've given us this morning, and really happy that. Oh, you're welcome. And I know that people will benefit an awful lot from the insights that you've given. So yeah, we're very grateful for that, and we look forward to hearing about your plans further down the road, and if things work out with Peace Corp or whatever else you're going to do. So make sure you keep in touch and let us know how you're getting on. But yeah. Thank you once again for your time this morning, and we shall catch up with you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.